The Star Wars Rise of Skywalker reshoots are real, and the internet is divided on whether or not this spells doom and gloom for the film or it's no big deal at all. So let's dive real deep on everything we know and break it all down.
It's like the news, but for nerds.
Today's shout out goes to laying down the law. Indeed, Yelena is the new Black Widow, the blonde Black Widow in that movie. Make sure you stay to the end of this video where we will ask another nerd card question. What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday to you and welcome back to the den. I am Josh and I am also sick. So you'll have to forgive me if this show's a little bit weird because this cold medicine might make me say some really weird things. Now let's get into this sure to be non-controversial video. Oh, Star Wars. Oh, Star Wars. So yes, there are reshoots going on right now for Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, and that's pretty close to the release. I mean, this is less than 100 days until release, and the fact that these reshoots are real has a lot of people freaking out on the internet and a lot of other people saying, hey, don't freak out, it's no big deal. And if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, let me give you the TLDR. This whole thing started with a single tweet from a gentleman named Art Tavana. Now, Art was a columnist in Hollywood. He actually worked at both Playboy and LA Weekly, but he no longer works there. But it's pretty fair to say this guy likely does have some Hollywood connections still. He came out and made this tweet right here. And in this tweet, he said, I'm being told that Disney is reshooting scenes for Star Wars. Don't quote me. Things aren't looking good. Too many variables and audiences to please. George Lucas, as a creative consultant, seems like a very likely occurrence, though there's no telling how much say he'll have. Now, this tweet prompted a bunch of articles and videos talking about how The Rise of Skywalker is doomed. And, you know, obviously, if you just look at what this tweet is saying and take it on its surface level, you could read some pretty negative things about what's going on with The Rise of Skywalker. Problem is, a lot of the people that are talking about this in a negative light are really just negative people. They have become this thing where they sort of spin every bit of Star Wars news with a negative angle to appease audiences that are pretty frustrated with where Star Wars is at right now. Now, to be completely fair to those people, it is a little strange to have a movie doing this kind of reshoots or any kind of reshoots this close to the movie. Not completely unheard of though, and as a lot of people have been pointing out, both Rogue One and Solo faced similar issues. Now, the next thing that happened in this crazy sequence of events that just gave this story more life is that Jason Ward came out and talked about how the reshoots were real, that in his opinion, they were not something to be concerned about, and that they are just JJ being JJ, that JJ is a famous revisionist of his work and sort of a reworker of his work. And so Jason and a lot of other people out there online are saying there's nothing to worry about here whatsoever. And to be totally fair here, again, it is worth pointing out that while Jason is likely correct that this is a JJ thing, he is the kind of person that would likely spin Star Wars news or at least view Star Wars news through a positive lensing. Now, to add even more craziness to the story, a YouTuber known as Doomcock, who, for the record, I've always heard of this guy and never actually seen him. I actually watched his video and I think it's kind of funny, like that mask, that whole freaking thing, that's kind of hilarious. But anyways, yeah, Doomcock came out and said that he was hearing from sources that not only are the reshoots real, but they're actually focusing on CGI, that Disney has hired 3 separate CGI studios and is getting them to do double the amount of work they originally were contracted for, which leads Doomcock to believe that they're doing something significant, a huge change in the movie, something about the ending, a big beat or a big event is being completely reworked. It's a CGI heavy scene, and therefore they're sort of like last minute being like, hey, get these studios, we need to rework this scene completely. And Doomcock has also been saying for a while now, and I don't know this to be fact, but this is what he's saying, so we'll go with it. He has been saying for a while, according to himself, that this is what he thinks is going on with the movie, that basically they are making it up as they go. They're shooting a bunch of different endings, a bunch of different possible scenes, and then making the film in the editing bay, which he says is a really bad thing. And it's really interesting how when he says that, and he says that he's hearing that they're making this film kind of up as they go along, you can kind of see a parallel thread to what Jason Ward is saying when he says JJ's a revisionist of his work. So this is probably just something JJ does, how he works in film. And yeah, he probably is shooting a lot of different scenes and revising things and reworking things. And Doomcock and probably a lot of other people view this through a very negative lens, while Jason and a lot of other people that I saw online are viewing it through a very positive lens. Okay, so now let's dig in, and I want to give my take on what is going on here. And I want to preface this whole part of the video by saying there is no disrespect or any kind of shade meant towards any other content creator. Like, I'm in the game, I totally get the game, I get coming from different angles, you know, appeasing your audience, I get all of that. I don't wish any ill will or think I am better than any other content creators out there. Okay, so as far as my take here, a lot of the negative channels or the channels out there like the Fandom Menace guys that are spinning everything into a negative light, particularly when it comes to this exact issue, they're not thinking logically at all. Like, all of the videos that are pointing to the problems with Solo and Rogue One and saying like, oh no, here we go again, and there's a good bit of videos and articles about that, those videos are completely illogical. I mean, first of all, Rogue One is probably the most highly praised, highly acclaimed film, most widely loved film out of the Disney Star Wars movies. Everybody loves Rogue One. I've actually come around to thinking that it probably is the best Star Wars movie that Disney has made. And yeah, that movie was like, really did a lot of reshooting. You know, Tony Gilroy comes in, it's ridiculous. My thoughts on that objectively are just, hey man, maybe Tony Gilroy should come in and remake every single Star Wars movie, because if we can get them to be as good as Rogue One, I'm all for it. And also when it comes to Solo, even though I personally do not like that movie at all, it is another movie that's pretty widely considered to be a really good Star Wars movie by people that like The Last Jedi and people that don't like The Last Jedi. Like, a lot of people like Solo, they don't blame what happened to Solo based on the quality. So I see a lot of people saying that, where they're like, well, look at what's happened before, this is doom and gloom. By that very logic, you should actually be excited about the reshoots. And to add to this, The Last Jedi didn't really have a lot of reshoots at all. In fact, I remember leading up to the release of that movie hearing that no, this doesn't have any of the production problems that any Star Wars movies had before. It's totally smooth, and they didn't even do reshoots. Like, up to 5 or 6 months before the film came out, it was essentially done. And at the time I was pumped. I was like, yo, this is awesome. This means they must really love this movie. They're really confident in it, and we're not having any of the problems that we had before. Man, I'm excited for The Last Jedi. And that movie turned out the way that it did. And that movie turned out to break the Star Wars fan base in a lot of different ways. And so a lot of these people, like Fandom Menace people included, that are like saying, hey, this is Solo and Rogue One had these reshoots, now Rise of Skywalker's got these reshoots. Oh, it's gonna be just like The Last Jedi. Like, that doesn't make any sense. If JJ is doing revisions and scrambling to try to appease different fan groups, that should be considered a good thing by anybody that's a fan. And if conversely, Ryan's movie perhaps was not concerned with making changes or altering his vision in order to please the fan base, maybe that was bad. So by that very logic, the reshoots are probably a good thing and something that people that didn't like The Last Jedi should be the most excited about. It is a logical fallacy to hate The Last Jedi because of what it did to fans and then dump on JJ for making changes and scrambling to try to appease fans. I also find a lot of intellectual dishonesty from both sides in this stupid fan war, because people that are super positive about it are just saying like, hey, it's no big deal, this is just run-of-the-mill stuff, we're just making reshoots here. And then people on the other side are like, holy crap, there's so much pressure on this movie, it's absolutely insane, and they're crumbling under the pressure. Like, both of those things are intellectually dishonest, because I think every single Star Wars fan realizes how much pressure is on Episode 9. Even if you like The Last Jedi, simply the fact that this movie will close up the entire Skywalker saga, that's crazy. That's a lot of pressure. That takes focus. That should take a lot of time, a lot of decisions, a lot of energy. I think Disney knows what a big deal this is. I think JJ knows what a big deal this is. I think even George Lucas knows what a big deal this is. That is why they're consulting with Lucas. That is why they are doing all of the things that they are doing. And, you know, I think they are throwing a lot of fan service into this film, but I don't consider that a bad thing. Like, again, I think it's a logical fallacy that if you are a person that dislikes The Last Jedi because of its disconsidering of fan opinion, to then dump on these reshoots because JJ is trying to appease fans. Do you see how that doesn't make any sense? I guess what I'm saying here is it's totally reasonable to be concerned about Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, but I think everybody should have been concerned way before the reshoots. Like, just in general, seeing what happened with The Last Jedi and Solo, as a Star Wars fan, you could be concerned about what's coming next. And when they announced that they're ending the Skywalker saga, I mean, damn, that's a lot of pressure. That's crazy. I think fans should be concerned. So I think that all fans should admit that, yeah, it's okay to be concerned about this movie. The reshoots, maybe that pushes you one way or another, whether you're more concerned or less concerned. But I think it's so weirdly dishonest, the conversations that are happening about these reshoots. Like, are they scrambling, probably trying to make sure this film appeases way more people than The Last Jedi did? Absolutely. And I think wherever you are at in this fan war or with the Star Wars brand, you could probably appreciate that considering the pressure that this movie is under. So I think it's like dishonest to be like, oh, it's totally fine, no big deal, you know what I mean? No, it's probably not totally fine. It is a super big deal, and these reshoots do point to them making some pretty last minute changes, but to be fair, people that were angry with The Last Jedi should actually be more excited than the other people, because what it probably means is there's some changes being done for the optics of that fan base, right? They probably went in with some kind of a plan, some kind of a script, they're going along with their story, and now they're changing something. And if Doomcock is correct, and they are changing something within CGI, that does likely point to some big change in the movie. And now where I'm at with all of this is, I think it's freaking awesome. Like, I think all the different leaks we're hearing, I think the fact that JJ's revising stuff, you know, these reshoots, all this stuff, it leaves fans in a place where we're like, we have no idea what to believe, we have no idea what to expect. It's really fun for me to report about it and speculate about it, but at the end of the day, it's a good thing. This is a good place for us to be in. And I honestly believe even the people that are mad and saying like, I'll never pay for Episode 9, guys, you're a vocal minority. The majority of people are gonna go check this out. Even people in the Phantom Menace, they're gonna go check this movie out. Now, they'll decide, maybe more harshly than other fans, whether or not they like it, and that's their right as fans. Totally cool with that. But to sit there and say that like this movie's not going to make a ton of money or it's going to be considered another failure, I just think is crazy. The movie does have to be good, and I really need it to accomplish several things for me to be satisfied with an ending to the Skywalker saga. But when it comes to these stories right now, I almost feel like we can't even really talk about what's going on for fear of upsetting one side or the other, which, by the way, is exactly why the gray order is so important. More on that soon. But that was a wild one. I'm sure you got some thoughts. Let us know in the comment section, what do you think about these different points that I brought up, and have you heard something else about the Rise of Skywalker reshoots and whether or not we should be concerned as a fan base? Let me know in the comment section below. And now let's check the nerd card before we get out of here. I want to know, what were the first words that Tarkin says to Princess Leia in Episode 4, A New Hope? Answer that question in the comment section below. Oh, and real quick before we get out of here, yesterday we got hit with a bunch of weird YouTube stuff. We did do a show yesterday about the Young Avengers rumors, so if you missed the show yesterday, or you want to see the video where I say how I'm not pumped about Joker, make sure you go check out the videos from yesterday. YouTube being YouTube, another day in this wild industry. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.